Chapter 469. Li Hongyuan was a complete tyrant in his previous life, and this was not without reason. In fact, Jingwan's death was a huge blow to him. It could be said that he had a mental problem at one point, but he did not realize it himself. At the worst time, he was in power, and his murderous nature worsened. It could be said that if it was not for Jingwan's child, he might have really gone on like that. The result could be imagined. Even so, Li Hongyuan spent a considerable amount of time to control his emotions and temper, so that he could barely be considered a normal person. However, because of the early impact, it could not be erased. He was decisive and wise in handling political affairs, but once a court official committed a crime, his methods were quite ruthless. It could be said that he would seize the property and exterminate the family at the slightest provocation. Therefore, although he was a tyrant, his reputation among the people was actually very high. Therefore, Li Hongyuan's current temperament was actually accumulated at that time. Compared to that time, it was actually much better now. Of course, it was also possible that he had hidden it deeper. The reason for this was probably because he was the emperor at that time, and he did not have any fetters or concerns. Even if he restrained his temperament, it was still limited. It was different after his rebirth. However, it was precisely because of his rebirth that his obsession with Jingwan deepened. Because she was still fine, he had the opportunity to have her. Jingwan's death in his previous life was a huge blow to him, but he was also very clear that she was gone. He also knew that the dead could not be brought back to life. Although he missed her deeply in his bones, he did not do anything morbid. If he did, it would be the ultimate insult to her. Moreover, they were only husband and wife for one night, so it was not legitimate. Perhaps it was because of this that he would occasionally indulge himself, even though he knew that Jingwan actually hated men hugging women. This was because he did not even have the right to protect her body. She was the mother of his only son, but before she died, she had specially instructed him not to enter the imperial mausoleum or the Fu family's ancestral grave. She was not a member of the royal family, so how could she enter the imperial mausoleum? Furthermore, as Fu Yunting's wife, she had slept with another man and even had a child. No matter the reason, even if they were only husband and wife in name, it was still a real betrayal. After betrayal, how could she still have the face to occupy the position by her husband's side? She was strict with others, and was equally strict with herself. In fact, Li Hongyuan was very jealous of Fu Yunting. It was not only because of Jingwan's sacrifice for the Fu family, Fu Yunting, and her loyalty to Fu Yunting. Therefore, even though he had taken another man's wife in his previous life and even had a child with her, and in this life, Jingwan and Fu Yunting did not have any interaction at all, he still could not resolve the thorn in his heart. Because, even if they chose another place to bury her, she would still carry the title of Madame Wu Anho. Because of Fu Yunting's overturning of the case, everything that she had done was known by everyone. Everyone respected her and worshipped her. However, she was also firmly linked to Fu Yunting. At that time, Li Hongyuan's heart was not completely black. He cared about Jingwan's reputation and did not want her to be condemned by everyone. Therefore, he could only watch on helplessly. Other than Li Hongyuan himself, no one knew who his son's biological mother was. Even the Luo family did not know. Even the guards who followed him to see her for the last time and brought his son back did not know that she was actually the daughter of the Luo family and Madame Wu Anho. Later, he did mention his mother to his son, even with a bit of malice. In the end, his son told him that he knew everything. He had accidentally seen the portrait that his imperial father gave his mother and heard his imperial father's drunken words. He knew that it was Madame Wu Anho. He did not know where his mother's grave was and had never paid respects to it. However, he had always worshipped a nameless memorial tablet. This was something that many people in the palace knew, except for Emperor Li Hongyuan. The palace servants knew that the crown prince valued that memorial tablet very much and no one could touch it. They also vaguely understood that the memorial tablet represented the crown prince's biological mother. The crown prince also knew that his imperial father did not like him. Even the palace servants said that before he was 1 year old, his imperial father had personally taken care of him. He was bestowed the title of crown prince before he was 1 year old. He did not have any other siblings. He had many knowledgeable teachers. He enjoyed the best of everything in the world. At that time, Li Hongyuan was unusually silent. He did not like his son and was not close to him. However, he never guarded against him. Otherwise, he would not have let him see his drunken state. His son was not even 10 years old, but he was as steady as a small adult. He enjoyed the best of everything, but he did not become arrogant. He had been taught well. He was outstanding, considerate, and outstanding. "You are like your mother," Li Hongyuan said. The crown prince gave a rare shy smile. They all said that she was very good. He knew that the world did not tolerate his parents' relationship. However, he did not feel ashamed of his mother. On the contrary, he had heard a lot about his mother. He yearned for her and admired her. He wondered what it would be like if she were still alive. She was very good. Then, Li Hongyuan told him the location of Jingwan's grave. Li Hongyuan felt that he did not have the right to pay respects to her, but their son definitely did. No one in the world was more qualified than this child. Since then, the crown prince would pay respects to her at least twice a year, rain or shine. Perhaps after that time, the father and son were still not close. However, Li Hongyuan began to teach him how to be an emperor. He did not just leave him to the imperial tutors. After all, those people were still officials. Of course, this was something that people were happy to see. However, the officials were secretly worried that Li Hongyuan's extreme ideas would affect the crown prince. They did not dare to say anything to Li Hongyuan. They could only teach the crown prince some things in secret. The crown prince was well aware of this. However, he never pointed it out. He just learned seriously. Therefore, when Li Hongyuan felt that his son was not like him and that he might be bullied after his death, the officials felt that the crown prince was benevolent, generous, wise, and decisive. The crown prince, who was gradually growing up, was actually proficient in the study of the emperor and the thick black theory. Moreover, Li Hongyuan introduced him to political affairs at an early age. He even handed over some unimportant matters to him. This was real practice, not an armchair strategist. Therefore, it was a typical white bun stuffed with black sesame seeds. In this way, Li Hongyuan left a lot of trump cards for his son to ensure his stability. It was actually a little redundant. Those things were just icing on the cake, even though the crown prince was not even 17 years old when he ascended the throne. There was another thing that Li Hongyuan did not know. After his death, his son buried him with Jingwan. The coffin in the imperial mausoleum was actually empty. The crown prince used this method to let his parents live and die in the same room. He only hoped that they could be legitimate husband and wife in their next life. Perhaps this was the only thing he could do as a son. Li Hongyuan was reborn. His goal was Jingwan, Jingwan, Jingwan. Everything else was secondary. His goal was to lay the foundation for Jingwan, or to hold up the sky for her. But this time, he could do whatever he wanted. He could stand by her side in a dignified manner. The one who did not have the right to do so would be someone else. Therefore, his heart could not be any darker. Anyone who obstructed him from achieving his goal, regardless of whether they were innocent or not, would be eradicated without mercy. There was no reason to be merciless. It was just that at the beginning of his rebirth, his body was young, he could not do anything. When he did not have power, he exposed himself too early. As for losing everything before he even started, he was definitely not that kind of stupid person. During those few years, everything forced him to endure. As the saying goes, 100 years of endurance turned into steel. And Jingwan felt that the king of hell was a perverted lunatic. In fact, she did not wrongly accuse him. He did have some mental problems occasionally. It was a side effect that was carried over from his previous life. Because he made Jingwan his rightful wife, to a certain extent, it was very good to appease him. At least on the surface, he seemed to be fine. However, it was true that 100 years of endurance turned into steel. Hidden in the depths of his heart, it was actually more serious. After a few years of endurance and silence, he could not erupt. Naturally, it was even more perverted. Paranoid possessiveness, perverted control. He was only afraid of scaring Jingwan, so he still controlled himself. If he did not have those few years in the palace, if Li Hongyuan had the opportunity to show off his skills when he came back, if he could keep Jingwan by his side from the beginning, then even if he was reborn, the relationship between him and Jingwan might be even more tragic. No one dared to disobey a king who was used to doing as he pleased. Even if there were times when he knew that he should not do so, he might not be able to control himself. Jingwan, on the other hand, was a strong person in her bones. She was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. If Li Hongyuan really used a forceful attitude to possess her and did not use gentle methods to conquer her heart first, Jingwan was bound to resist. And her resistance would naturally stimulate his tyranny, causing his methods and attitude to become even more severe. Therefore, that was a vicious cycle. At that time, it would not only be a tragedy, it would definitely be a tragedy of tragedies. From the development of the current situation, his obsession did not disappear just because he got what he wanted. Instead, it became deeper and deeper. It could be said that there was no deepest, only deeper and deeper. His illness was probably something that even the best psychiatrist could not cure. Let's ask, for such a man, what were the chances of him having a change of heart? Jingwan did not know what he was thinking of, but the look in his eyes was a little strange. She did not know what made him have such a big reaction, making someone as strong as him be trapped and bitterly struggling. However, Jingwan would not forget the reason for this step. In the end, it was still the sterilization powder. At this moment, Jingwan also hated imperial concubine Su Shi. She wished she could tear her body into pieces. Jingwan leaned over and kissed him on the corner of his mouth. She softly called, "Ah Yuan," without stopping. Li Hongyuan's eyes became clear again. He followed Jingwan's action and kissed her back. There was no lust, only the joy of regaining what he had lost. As long as she was still alive, as long as she was by his side, that was enough. At the very least, at this very moment, everything that Li Hongyuan wanted was so insignificant. Wan will always be by my side. You won't go anywhere, right? Jingwan hugged him. Yes, I will always be by your side. In life and death, I will never leave you. Then let's not have children, okay? It's always just the two of us. Li Hongyuan leaned on Jingwan's shoulder and tilted his head. Jingwan suddenly became anxious. Ah Yuan, what do you mean? Are you under the sterilization powder? You just don't want me to worry, so you lied. It doesn't matter. Didn't the old gentleman say it was still possible? And when Gong Zhou's medical skills improve, maybe he can cure the sterilization powder. Ah Yuan, maybe. Wan. Li Hongyuan was a little amused. His wife obviously misunderstood. In fact, Jingwan couldn't be blamed. Her husband was a real man in a feudal society. Male power was paramount. He was also a prince and might be the emperor in the future. How much importance did he attach to children? Therefore, it never occurred to her that he really didn't want children. Don't be nervous. Listen to me. It has nothing to do with the sterilization powder. Old Mr. Yu has checked my pulse. My body is very good. I don't want children because I'm worried that your body will suffer. When Zhou something Shuang gave birth, I had similar thoughts. Also, I don't want anyone to distract your attention. I hope that you will always pay attention to me. Do you understand? It had been a long time, but because he thought of his son in his previous life, the blurry face gradually became clear. The boy didn't look like him. Although he was a young boy in his teens, he was also tall and handsome. His face didn't reach his level, but it was better than many people. However, in terms of details, he was more like Jingwan. Especially when he smiled, it gave people a very warm feeling. However, Li Hongyuan didn't have the hobby of finding the shadow of his beloved from his son. Therefore, it was pure nonsense to love the house and its crow like his father. He didn't like this son. He still didn't like it. However, Li Hongyuan felt that if he saw the boy, Wanwan might like him very much. After all, from Wanwan's attitude towards the younger brothers and sisters, nephews and nieces of the Luo family, he knew that she actually liked children, let alone her own flesh and blood. It was said that this woman didn't have much of her mind on her husband after giving birth to a child. He couldn't bear it when he thought about it. Jingwan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This man really didn't know what to say about him. The child hadn't even been born yet, and he was already jealous. Perhaps she really shouldn't treat him like the current men. At least no one treated him like this. You can't have no children, especially when you're preparing to sit in that position. Jingwan said matter-of-factly, without children, everything you do now will be taken advantage of by others, perhaps your enemies. In her previous life, creating a rich family business, regardless of whether there were descendants or not, could be done for charity and help those in need. However, it was different now. It was about the family and the clan. No matter how rich the family business was, if there was no heir, it would be divided by the so-called clan members. It was a matter of course. And the more power one had, the more they would own. Those who really needed it wouldn't even get a copper, let alone unrelated people with a different surname. Everything that one had worked so hard for would fall into the hands of the enemy in the end. That was the most tragic. Yuan, children are the continuation of our lives and the best proof of our love for each other. If you don't like children in front of you, why don't we send them away? Thinking about it this way, this was simply a typical case of giving birth to a child but not raising one. The child hadn't even been born yet, and he was already thinking about being a scumbag father and a scumbag mother. This was clearly the kind of person she didn't like. However, someone was too possessive. What should she do? Could it be that he really didn't want children? If nothing else, her grandmother would scold her to death. It doesn't seem very good. The child will definitely be sad. Wanwan, you are now thinking about this. How can I look forward to the arrival of a child? Although these words were said very softly, Jingwan didn't feel relaxed at all. She really wondered what would happen if the child in the future stuck to her. That was not his child, but his enemy. Yuan, let's not talk about this first. Anyway, the current situation is really not suitable for children. When everything is settled, let nature take its course, okay? She hurriedly stopped this increasingly dangerous topic. Jingwan was really afraid that she would agitate him, who was obviously not in the right mood now, and then he would make the final decision and refuse the arrival of children. Li Hongyuan was silent for a moment and nodded his head indifferently. Jingwan turned her body and knelt behind Li Hongyuan. She reached out and gently rubbed his temples. Li Hongyuan closed his eyes and tried to suppress the negative emotions in the bottom of his heart. Jingwan vaguely felt it. While rubbing his temples, she whispered to him to attract his attention. In fact, Jingwan's method did play a big role. Although Li Hongyuan rarely answered, he had been listening carefully. After all, the living her covered up the dead her. When he opened his eyes again, Jingwan smiled softly. He had recovered. Li Hongyuan held Jingwan's hand and pulled her in front of him. He didn't do anything else but just held her in his arms. It gave people a kind of illusion of peace. During the time when the two were together, no one came to disturb them. Even the maids didn't change the tea. "Ah Yuan, let's go horse racing at the horse farm." Jingwan was suspicious of him and smiled. "Horse racing? Do you want to race with me or ride with me? Didn't you say that the horse farm has been built long ago? But you have to check it yourself." "Check it yourself? Wan wants to go personally." Li Hongyuan raised his eyebrows. "Ah Yuan's equestrian skills are there. Of course, you should go and I'll just watch. As long as Ah Yuan feels that it's not bad, then it's qualified, right? When it's confirmed that it's qualified, let's hold a horse riding competition. And let's hold it after your birthday. What do you think, Ah Yuan?" "Okay." There was nothing wrong with what his wife said. However, if he really wanted to hold a horse riding competition, then he had to make preparations. It couldn't be delayed for too long. After mid-April, the northwest border would be in a state of emergency. Compared to the war in the northeast, it was the difference between a main course and an appetizer. In his previous life, the destruction of Wu Anhou and the tragedy of Jingwan all began at this time. However, when they talked about this, Li Hongyuan became gloomy again. After Jingwan's 16th birthday, it seemed that she should have married Fu Yunting. However, Fu Yunting's uncle, the current Wu Anhou, died at this time. Jingwan married Wu Anhou during the mourning period. They could have used this as an excuse to delay the marriage. Why didn't the Luo family do so? Li Hongyuan never thought that the old fox Luo family was doing this out of righteousness. Moreover, Madame Luo loved Jingwan so much. How could she bear to do this? Although Luo Peishan wasn't the Minister of Personnel, he was still the Minister of Rights. It wasn't impossible for him to stop the marriage. However, even though Wu Anhou was still paralyzed, he was living well. He was even better than a few years ago. Fu Yunting, who had married 2 years ago, had a son who was almost 1 year old. He had people pay attention to Wu Anhou, but they didn't find anything wrong. Li Hongyuan suspected that because things were different, some things might not happen again. If that was the case, then he probably wouldn't be able to find the reason why Jingwan was forced to marry. However, the reason why his old man was so determined to destroy Wu Anhou and didn't hesitate to sacrifice the lives of more than 200,000 soldiers was definitely something that could be found. If it wasn't for these 200,000 soldiers and the tens of thousands of soldiers in the northeast, he wouldn't have been in such a sorry state when he first started the war with the other countries in his previous life. Some people always had to pay the price for the things they did. What are you thinking about now? Jingwan was helpless. You're a man. Can't you be a little more open-minded? Why are you always dwelling on the past? If you continue like this, I'm going to get jealous and angry. However, Jingwan knew that something that he couldn't forget was definitely not a small matter. It should be something that no one could easily let go of. However, Jingwan didn't know the full story and didn't know how to comfort him. She could only say this. We agreed to ride horses. If you continue to be absent-minded, I really won't let you go. Do you hear me? Jingwan reached out and gently tugged on his ear. And, I hear you. I won't be absent-minded again. Jingwan wanted to let Li Hongyuan vent his emotions. Although he suppressed it, it would definitely do more harm than good if he kept it bottled up in his heart. Li Hongyuan obviously understood Jingwan's intentions and naturally accepted it. https://11/11807/110434421. Chapter 470. With such a tacit understanding, Li Hongyuan really ran around and showed off in front of his wife. However, he showed off too much. Not only did he fail to attract his wife's admiring eyes, but he almost scared Jingwan to death. According to Jingwan's original design, in addition to being a dedicated top horse racing track, it also had many characteristics of the equestrian club in her previous life. Therefore, it was natural to pay attention to safety. However, when she was really in it and watched her husband show off in different clothes, she realized that some places had been changed beyond recognition by someone. In other words, a lot of things had been added to the original foundation. Not to mention safety, it was simply a synonym for thrill and excitement. Jingwan looked at it and felt her heart was about to jump out. When she came here, she wanted to say that it didn't look like a track at all. However, it turned out that this man didn't want a normal horse race at all. The first time she saw his horsemanship was at the birthday banquet of Great Elder Princess when she came to the capital the year before last. From the perspective of a pure spectator, she felt that it was thrilling. In addition to the concern that almost everyone had, she was naturally deeply impressed like the others. She sighed that Prince Jin's horsemanship was a little too good. But now, compared with the water cloister, rockery, stones hidden in the water, and the specially designed track in Great Elder Princess's mansion, it was much more complicated. People who didn't have enough psychological endurance would probably cover their eyes 99% of the time, fearing that the rider would have an accident and die on the spot. Jingwan was no longer a pure spectator. The man who was courting death was her husband, the person she cared about most. On the spectator stand, she held the guardrail tightly with a pale face. Even if she was extremely scared, she still stared at him without blinking. Many times she wanted to ask him to stop, but in the end, the words were stuck in her throat. She was afraid that if she spoke, she would distract him and cause an accident, so she bit her lip until it bled. His heart was beating wildly. Li Hongyuan, do you know what you were doing just now? You just don't know how dangerous it was. You could have lost your life if something went wrong. Even if you're unhappy, you can't vent your anger like this. You're not venting your anger. You're courting death. You. Li Hongyuan scolded Jingwan, what are you doing? You just don't know how dangerous it was. You could have lost your life if something went wrong. Li Hongyuan didn't get a hug from his wife. Instead, he got scolded. He was a little unhappy, but he knew that she was worried. Wan, don't worry. I'm fine. You have to believe me. When something happens, it'll be too late. Jingwan roared, believe you? Can I believe a horse? Even if you can control a horse to the point where you can control it with your arms and fingers, there are times when people are careless and get hurt. As the saying goes, people make mistakes, and horses stumble. What if? Jingwan couldn't continue. Tears fell down her face uncontrollably, and her body trembled involuntarily. Jingwan was a woman with a strong heart. She rarely cried. Even when she was weak, she didn't cry so fiercely. Li Hongyuan couldn't be unhappy. It was the first time he saw her like this. He was at a loss and hurriedly coaxed her, Wan, don't cry. I know I was wrong. I won't do it again, Wan. Jingwan looked at him with tears in her eyes. Wrong? You really know you were wrong. Jingwan wasn't blind. How could she not see that he didn't care about such a dangerous thing? Jingwan really didn't know how a noble prince like him could have such a special hobby. He wasn't like those people in the rebellious stage who were looking for excitement. He always seemed to be confident. Ah, Yuan, you're not afraid. You don't think there's anything to be afraid of, but I'm afraid. Do you know that I was almost scared to death by you just now? Put yourself in my shoes. Just now, the person on the horse was me, and I was standing next to you. What would you do? What would you do? Li Hongyuan suddenly hugged her tightly. I'm sorry, Wan. I really know I was wrong. Jingwan reached out and hugged his waist. We agreed to grow old together. I don't want some accidents that could have been avoided. I just want to be with you. Even if it's just quietly staying in a small place, it doesn't matter. I'm sorry, Wan. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. I swear, it won't happen again. Jingwan took a while to calm down. Then, she looked at the field and was unusually displeased. Did the people sent by the Ministry of Works have water in their heads? Tell them to come and tear it down immediately. If they let me see even a little bit of it, prepare to go home and kneel on the washboard. Jingwan was venting her anger on them. She was a woman of the harem. Naturally, she would use the harem's method to deal with them. Since she couldn't do anything to them, she naturally went to their wives. It was just like some of the methods of the living king of hell. Li Hongyuan stood at the side. His hands behind his back unconsciously moved. He didn't need to go home and kneel on the washboard. He could help his wife get it back. He didn't have the self-consciousness that he was the one who implicated her. Muan didn't dare to say anything. Naturally, he would do whatever the princess consort said. Jingwan's gaze was still a little cold. Muan, have you paid for the construction of the horse farm? Replying to princess consort, there is still a part of the money that hasn't been settled with the Ministry of Works. It's probably close to 50,000 taels. Drag it out. If the Ministry of Works comes to ask for money, just tell them directly. This princess consort is unhappy. When I'm happy, then I'll pay. Her own husband couldn't bear to torment her, so naturally, he would torment others. You don't have to pay. It was only a few thousand taels. Li Hongyuan didn't care. Jingwan coolly glanced at him. The living king of hell tactfully shut his mouth. This disaster had already been thrown out, only a fool would pick it back up. In fact, the Ministry of Works had always liked to build things for Wang. Because Wang was generous and never defaulted, everyone liked it. They were more enthusiastic than building anything for the emperor. After all, whatever the emperor built, it was basically paid from the national treasury. Then, it had to go through the Ministry of Revenue. The Ministry of Revenue was a group of misers. They specialized in procrastinating. They didn't like it the most. This time, Jingwan was even more unreasonable. Even though they were taking the blame for Wang, but because it was Wang, there was even less room to reason. Therefore, in the end, they could only pinch their noses and endure, and wait for Wang Fei's anger to subside. A few thousand taels, to Li Hongyuan, was not a problem at all. But to the people in the Ministry of Works, it was not like that. There were so many craftsmen working. Even though they might not belong to the Ministry of Works, but they still received work from the Ministry of Works. However, Jingwan wasn't a mean person. She wasn't the kind of person who only saw money as a number. She knew suffering. Therefore, this money, even if it was delayed, it wouldn't be delayed for too long. Everyone was well aware of this matter. So to say, when the people in the Ministry of Works found out later, perhaps they would be a little anxious at the beginning. When they recovered, it would be fine. However, they would probably still smile helplessly. Whatever Wang said, they could only do as he said. Wang himself sought death. Wang Fei was angry, but she wanted them. What was this called? Of course, this was a story for later. Let's not talk about it for now. Li Hongyuan pulled Jingwan and gently held her wrist. Do you want to go for a ride? He casually patted his beloved horse. The horse farm is bigger than what you think. If you just walk, it would probably be a little tiring. Jingwan glanced at the BMW that just led its owner around recklessly. This horse seemed to know that its previous mistress was angry because of it. It rubbed against Jingwan's arm in a fawning manner. As a result, before Jingwan could do anything, Li Hongyuan slapped it. My wife, don't rub against me. Jingwan was very speechless. In the end, was it more likely that he was randomly eating vinegar, or did he make the first move to gain the upper hand by teaching his beloved horse a lesson, so that she wouldn't continue to vent her anger on the horse? However, Jingwan originally didn't want to ride a horse. A certain someone gave her too much of a shock. She clearly didn't do anything, but faintly felt her legs go soft. It was like after seeing something, the person involved didn't do anything, but the bystanders were infected with a psychological shadow. In fact, this kind of thing was very normal. The more you cared about it, the more it was like this. Just because of this small episode, Jingwan seemed to have improved a lot. Li Hongyuan flipped onto the horse, lowered his head and reached out to Jingwan. His gaze was unusually focused and serious, with an indescribable tenderness and sweetness. In the end, Jingwan didn't refuse. She put her hand in his palm, and with his strength, she easily sat in front of him. With a light shake of the reins, the horse started to move. Its speed was only a little faster than a person walking. This horse farm, as Li Hongyuan said, was larger than Jingwan expected. The expanded area was actually completely a leisure area. It could simply become a top leisure club without special services. It was simply a waste not to use it to make money. However, according to a certain someone's wealth, it was not standard to use it to make money. But wouldn't it be more wasteful to just leave it like this? Moreover, even if the two of them came to sit from time to time, it would be too cold and cheerless. So, why did a certain someone make this part out? Didn't Wan say that we want to make money? Since this place has been demarcated, naturally it is not suitable for us to live in. I don't lack money, but the National Treasury will never complain about having too much money. Li Hongyuan said a little unhurriedly. Jingwan instantly understood. If this place was really developed, it would definitely be very profitable and popular. At that time, the one on the throne would be suspicious again. However, if it was only under their name, it would actually be managed by the emperor's people and the income would be put into the national treasury. The one on the throne would definitely be very happy. After all, there were so many rich people in the capital, and so many old and young masters threw a lot of money into various squandering dens every day. Now that a part of it was snatched to fill the national treasury, it would be strange if Luqingdi was not happy. In such a way, even if someone was jealous and wanted to find fault with them in the future, they would be suppressed by Luqingdi in seconds without having to do anything. Why not? They only needed to take a small part of the labor fee. It was not excessive at all, was it? The national treasury would not complain about having too much money, and their private pockets would not. Unknowingly, they had already walked through many places, and at the same time, Jingwan did not know, the horse's speed had already increased. Although it was not as fast as lightning, it was enough to make something fly. After running 2 laps on the racing track, the shadow in Jingwan's heart that had not yet formed had disappeared without a trace. Originally, I wanted to take you to the precious beast's garden to take a look, but it's already late today. We'll go another day. Jingwan leaned on him and lazily responded. On the jolting horse, behind her was a warm chest, by her ear was a soft whisper, and then there was a gentle breeze. This kind of feeling was really so comfortable that it made people want to stay in this moment for a long time. Perhaps it was because he felt Jingwan's mood. Li Hongyuan could not help but slow down, and leisurely drove the BMW towards the villa. Jingwan felt comfortable, and he did not feel bad. At least, the negative emotions had disappeared, and his heart had become calm again. Sure enough, he probably could not leave her in this lifetime. However, he had never thought of resisting and leaving. Back at the villa, Li Hongyuan dismounted and then carried Jingwan down. In the following days, Li Hongyuan and Jingwan seemed to have things to do. What was Li Hongyuan busy with? Wasn't it Jingwan's wedding anniversary? Of course, he was busy with this. After all, his EQ was still good. He also knew that this kind of thing could not be completely ignored. Although it was impossible for him to do everything by himself because of his identity, if he gave orders to everything as soon as he opened his mouth, Wan would know that she would be angry, and he himself did not want to be like this. He felt that Wan seemed to care a lot. After that, Li Hongyuan also felt that this kind of day was indeed very important. Although he did not know what to do, he followed his heart and did something that he wanted to do. As for what Jingwan was busy with, Li Hongyuan was not too sure. She seemed to be fiddling with the clothes. She also specially called the musicians from the Wang mansion and specially arranged a place with many dressing mirrors. When Li Hongyuan asked, Jingwan always smiled and avoided the question, "You will know when the time comes." Li Hongyuan did not miss the faint shyness on Jingwan's face. It could be seen that this matter was worth looking forward to. Li Hongyuan chuckled and did not ask any more. And his wife had to prepare a surprise. What Jingwan wanted to do was indeed a little shameful, but since she had made up her mind, of course she had to prepare well. The Shaanxi festival on the 3rd of March was also known as Daughter's Day. Of course, those who would participate in this festival would not only be those girls. Last year, because of Jin Qinhuang's wedding, the entire capital's top-ranked girls and gongzi, scholars and refined guests, naturally did not participate in any activities. This year, what they wanted to do had nothing to do with Jingwan. Since waking up in the morning, Jingwan's entire person was in a state of slight excitement. It was clear that she was looking forward to today. Don't look at how Li Hongyuan was actually an old man based on his actual age. Regarding this kind of matter, he was actually a little apprehensive, afraid that he would not be able to win his wife's favor. But seeing Jingwan's state, he suddenly calmed down. https://11/11807/110434422 Chapter 471. In Jingwan's excitement and Li Hongyuan's indifference, it was time to exercise and eat breakfast. Seeing Li Hongyuan like this, Jingwan felt a little indignant. She wanted to reach out and pinch his face. She felt that she was very silly. It was their wedding anniversary. Was this a personal matter? However, a certain someone still had a doting expression on his face. It was different. At least the feelings he expressed now were more obvious. Jingwan could only withdraw her hand resentfully. She hated being bullied the most. Although if he resisted, she should be miserable. Therefore, no matter what, it was wrong. Jingwan felt even more depressed. Li Hongyuan found it funny. He pulled Jingwan in front of him and stroked her hair. "Let's go." Jingwan's gloominess was swept away, and she was beaming with joy again. Therefore, Jingwan was actually like many women. She was very easy to coax. She didn't care about what to do. What she cared about was who she was with. As long as it was the person in her heart, she would be happy. Knowing that today was a special day for the two masters, whether it was the servants, the guards, or the secret guards, it could be said that everyone was very well behaved. While doing their duty, they tried their best not to disturb the two of them. Therefore, with such masters, they were quite idle, but at the same time, it was not easy to do things. Because when she came last year, she had already explored the entire manor. In Jingwan's opinion, there shouldn't be any changes this year. In the past few days, she was leisurely and didn't want to walk around. Anyway, she had a lot of time. However, when she was brought out by Li Hongyuan today, she realized that this place had also changed a lot. Overall, it might not have changed much, but in the details, it showed a unique style of infinite beauty. March was originally a good season for entering spring. Everything was recovering and flowers were blooming. Because Jingwan liked it, this manor was built in this direction from the beginning. Some things, the living king of hell could do silently. However, there were some things that he naturally wanted to take credit for. Was the living king of hell such a person who blindly did things and didn't express anything? Obviously not. The benefits that he should ask for were absolutely not small, especially if it came from his wife. It was 10 times or 100 times more. It could be said that the entire manor, other than the side courtyard where they lived, was basically filled with all kinds of flowers and trees that could be seen as far as the eye could see. Some were forests, and some were solitary flowers. After careful care, reasonable placement, and mixing with the mountains and rivers, there wouldn't be a situation where too much would make it seem ordinary, and it wouldn't make people lose their artistic conception and become artificial. With Li Hongyuan holding her hand as they strolled, her mood was so good that she could fly. Ah, these were all done when we went to Jiangnan last year. Isn't the timing just? Wasn't it just right? When they met again, it was a completely different scenery and a different kind of joy. Could it be that Yuan is going to use the ready-made things prepared last year to send me away? Jingwan pretended to be unhappy, but the smile in her eyes couldn't be concealed. If that's the case, then I don't need to be busy before. Jingwan smiled until her eyes turned into crescents. She completely let go of her temper and did not care about the rules at all. To put it in a more elegant way, she was like a butterfly flying recklessly among the flowers. Hundreds of flowers bloomed for her, as if waiting for her blessing. Li Hongyuan followed behind unhurriedly. Hundreds of flowers were the most beautiful scenery in her eyes, and she was the only beautiful scenery in his eyes. Then, Jingwan finally found something different. On a certain cluster of flowers, there was a small box the size of a palm. Jingwan's eyes flashed slightly. She picked up the box and looked back at Li Hongyuan. Seeing Li Hongyuan smile, she was sure that this was part of March 3rd. Jingwan opened it with some expectations. The things inside were somewhat beyond Jingwan's expectations. Although she was sure that it wouldn't be ordinary gold and silver jewelry, she was still surprised. There were 2 little people holding hands. They were carved out of superior mutton fat jade, but the details were decorated with other items, such as eyes, mouth, and small belly bands on their bodies. Yes, the 2 dolls were estimated to be about 1 year old. Jingwan gently covered her mouth, because she could see from the facial features of the dolls that it was clearly her and her husband. Although it was certainly impossible to be exactly the same because it was a small doll, the details were still very obvious. The craftsmanship was quite exquisite and lifelike. Jingwan couldn't put it down. The more she looked at it, the more she liked it. However, Yuan, you are very thick-skinned. You are several years older than me, and you have the nerve to let people carve such dolls. Li Hongyuan stepped forward and the back of his fingers brushed across Jingwan's face. Because I know I can't, so I use this way to grow up with Wan and grow old hand in hand. Jingwan's heart seemed to be fiercely squeezed. Her eyes were a little red, but her heart was filled with honey. Together. How many dolls like this did Yuan prepare? Li Hongyuan's thumb brushed the corner of Jingwan's eyes, wiping away the faint tears. Wan needs to find them by herself and see if she can find all of them. If she can find them, there will be a reward. If she can't find them, she will be punished. For such a gift, she had to find all of them even if she had to dig 3 feet into the ground. However, how could it be buried underground? From the position of the first box, it could be seen that the place where the gifts were placed was not hidden. She was afraid that there were too many of them and it would be difficult to find them all. After all, the place was so big that even the most obvious place could be overlooked. Jingwan was full of fighting spirit. She vowed to find all the things and the dolls. After that, it was no longer a simple appreciation of the scenery. Jingwan began to search for treasures. Because there was no hurry to find them, although it took a long time, it was not tiring. Moreover, tea, snacks, melons and fruits were prepared. They were either placed on special tables and chairs that were integrated with the surroundings, placed on a rockery, or placed next to a flower pot. Occasionally, there was also wine. In short, they were quite well prepared. Jingwan found the boxes one by one. The sizes of the boxes were the same. The places where these boxes were placed could be among the flowers, on the grass, hanging on the branches of the flowers, or even next to the prepared food. There was indeed no secret place. The shapes of the dolls also began to change. The postures were different, but without exception, it was the 2 of them. They were very close. From infancy, to children, to teenagers, and then to marriage. The husband and wife in red wedding clothes bowed to each other, snuggled up to each other until middle age, and sat and watched the clouds roll by until old age. Jingwan sorted them from the beginning. The first dozen or so dolls were a little bigger than the previous one, as if they were a year older. The size of the later dolls did not change, but from some details, one could still see the flow of time. The main color of the clothes was also changing. Jingwan touched them one by one. She was really in love. Looking at these jade dolls, it seemed that he really participated in the time when he was not there. The innocent feelings, the inexperience of the first awakening of love, and the gaze of 10,000 mothers. Jingwan's eyes faintly flashed with tears, especially the last one. The background was a coffin. The 2 of them were holding hands as they stood side by side. Their faces were already gone, but they were still in their luxurious clothes. Even if they were born together and died together, it was still better than this. There were a total of 99 dolls. Ah Yuan, have you found all of them? In Jingwan's view, it should be all of them. Life was not 100% perfect. Even she, herself, wanted to pursue a long life. Putting the death together at 99 was not to die at 99 years old, but to hold hands from the moment they were born until they fell asleep forever. Li Hongyuan nodded gently. Not only are they all here, but the order of Wan is also completely correct. Jingwan could not help but go forward and hug him. She tiptoed and kissed him on the lips. It was just a light kiss. Ah Yuan, I like it very much. Really, I like it very much. Li Hongyuan hugged her. And, it's good that you like it. There was nothing better than making his wife like it. Let's go. Someone will take it back in a while. No, this is a gift from you. How can I let others handle it? I'll take it myself. Then what should I do? These were not carved by me personally. But I know that the appearance was definitely drawn by you. The idea was definitely given by you. That's enough. Li Hongyuan gently rubbed the back of Jingwan's neck. He decided to learn how to carve and then personally carve a set for her. Then I'll get someone to send a box over. Let's pack it up and send it back first. As for what to do with it later, we'll talk about it later, okay? Did Yuan approve of other gifts? Jingwan's eyes were bright. That's not the case. But it's our wedding anniversary, it's a whole day. Or is it that without a gift, Wanwan doesn't want to be with me? Prince Jean expressed that he was a little sad. How can that be? I like the gift because it was given by you. Compared to these, even if there's nothing, I still like you. I like you the most in the world. Among men and women, I like you the only one. Jingwan smiled and kissed him. Li Hongyuan could not help but kiss her again and again on the lips. This little mouth is getting sweeter and sweeter. That's all because of Ah Yuan. There was no other way. Who let her man's sweet talk skills be full? Li Hongyuan smiled non-committally and turned back. Someone come, bring the box over. Although there was no response, there was no need to worry. Jingwan retreated from Li Hongyuan's side and carefully put the jade-like carved dolls one by one into the box. When the box was sent over, it was only half-packed. But she did not want to use other people's hands. Even if it was Li Hongyuan, she did not want to help. Finally, all the boxes were put into the box. It was neither too big nor too small, just right. Jingwan understood in her heart. She guessed that this box was used to store these before. When all of them were packed, the weight was not light. However, it was not a problem for Hei Mei. She just knew that this was something that her master cared about very much. So, in the process of moving it back, Hei Mei was also very careful. When there was only the husband and wife left, Ah Yuan, you said before that there would be a prize if we found all of them. What is it? Let's go. Li Hongyuan did not say much. Holding Jingwan's hand, he leisurely walked along the winding path. On both sides, there were peach blossoms in full bloom. When the wind blew, the petals fell in riotous profusion, sprinkling on the head and shoulders. At the end of the path, there was a relatively open place. The ground was lush with fragrant grass. On the other side of the relatively gentle slope, there were some unique trees. However, Jingwan's attention was attracted by one of the begonia trees. This begonia tree was a little beyond Jingwan's imagination. Its appearance was like a fan-shaped banyan tree. The branches were luxuriant and the clusters of flowers were as warm as fire. Jingwan looked at it and could not help but speed up her pace. Standing under the begonia tree, she felt that the temperature seemed to be lower. It really felt like under the banyan tree. Jingwan raised her head and could not stop smiling. Her feet kept walking back and forth. Li Hongyuan stood outside and looked at Jingwan. Her whole body was dyed with red clouds. Her gorgeous face was the most beautiful in the world. Ah Yuan, this tree was not here last year. Was it transplanted later? Li Hongyuan walked forward. Yes. In fact, I had already looked for it, but it was too big. It was not easy to move. Even in her previous life, it was not easy to transplant such a large tree, let alone now. Moreover, this begonia tree was growing so well. Jingwan basically did not find any damage. It was enough to show how much manpower and material resources were used. Thinking of this, Jingwan's joy faded a little. Ah Yuan, the people in power are happy, but the people are sad. Li Hongyuan couldn't help but laugh. Wanwan really cares about the world. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. I won't let what you're worried about happen. It's just a begonia. I'm just a grand prince with no power or influence. No one will deliberately try to curry favor with me. If there's a need, I'll send my own people. Today is our wedding anniversary. Don't think so much. He gently scratched the tip of her nose. That's good. Because the people in power like something, the people below them would do their best to find it. They would use any means necessary to make a living. This kind of thing, whether it was in the history before Qiyuan or in Jingwan's previous life, had happened many times. On the other side, Jingwan saw a swing hanging from the begonia tree. It was decorated with all kinds of flowers. When Jingwan walked closer, she saw that it was all silk flowers. To be able to make it so realistic, it was probably the masterpiece of the maids beside her. Jingwan sat on it. Without Jingwan saying anything, Li Hongyuan went forward and used a little force. The swing swung higher and higher, until Jingwan could reach out and touch the begonia flowers. Jingwan's laughter could be heard. Occasionally, she would call out, "Ah Yuan," and ask him to push it higher. Li Hongyuan pushed the swing with one hand behind his back. He was not impatient at all. He was very good as a guardian. "Wan, be careful. Sit tight and don't fall." Jingwan looked at him sideways. "Ah Yuan, you are here. I believe you won't let me fall. A few days ago, who told me that people can make mistakes and horses can stumble? Okay, I know. I will be careful." https://11/11807/11083588. Chapter 472. At this moment, Jingwan did not know that there were guests at the farmstead, and there was more than one of them. The guests were watching them from a distance, watching the couple laughing and fooling around. They were so intimate. "It seems like we came at the wrong time today." Today, Sun Ijia, who was wearing beautiful peach blossom makeup, had a light smile on her face. She had a relaxed posture as she wrapped the handkerchief around her finger, slowly loosening it and wrapping it around her finger again. But it seems like this trip was not in vain. Yuan Xiao smiled meaningfully. "Yes." Sun Yijia nodded. The second young mistress of the Luo family, Lady Zhao, also smiled lightly. Because she was pregnant, she appeared very gentle and had the motherly instincts of a mother. Moreover, her relationship with Luo Jingming had truly entered the honeymoon stage. After she became pregnant, her husband was very considerate and did not sleep with her. She felt very comfortable and did not have any adverse reactions during pregnancy. She was very nourished. Of course, they were not the only ones who came. Their respective husbands, 3 couples and 6 people, were also there. On the 3rd day of March, they were supposed to go out and have fun. Sun Yijia had received news that Jingwan would not return, so she decided to come and take a look. Yuan Xiao received the news, so how could she miss it? Then, she bumped into Luo Jingming and his wife, so they decided to come together. Since their wives were coming, the 3 men could only risk their lives to accompany them. They had to be prepared to risk their lives in the face of the King of Hell. However, the result was not very timely. Li Hongyuan had previously instructed that unless Emperor Lu Qingdi passed away or Qi Yuan was destroyed, no one was to disturb them without his permission. Obviously, these 2 things could not happen at this time. Now that only the princess consort's family came, of course, they could not report it. However, some things could not be said clearly. In the end, it was Granny Gong who made the decision to bring them over. Yes, they could only watch from afar. Then, these 6 people were fiercely shown their affection by Li Hongyuan and Jingwan. After that, the 3 grown men, to varying degrees, received their own wives' gazes. That was like hidden bitterness, like an accusation. "Look at Jean Qin Wang, then look at you, why didn't you learn properly?" The 3 men felt different degrees of heartache. Prince Jean, who was once a playboy and loved for 7 days, was actually regarded as a role model of a good husband. Even their wives wanted them to learn more. Just the thought of it made one's heart ache. "Cousin-in-law, what should we do next? Go back, or go back? Go back for what?" Sun Yijia waved her hand and then looked at Granny Gong with a smile. "Granny, we are a little tired from the journey. Can I trouble you to bring a few stools for us to sit and rest for a while? She had made up her mind not to leave for the time being. At this moment, Zhao Shi and Yuan Chaoqiao were following Sun Yijia's lead, especially Zhao Shi. If she wanted to sit for a while, it was even more above board. Therefore, the three men's opinions were completely ignored. As for Sun Yijia's request, Granny Gong was naturally satisfied because she did not think there was any problem at all. Their place was relatively hidden. They could see Jingwan and the others clearly, but they could not easily see them. Of course, this was only relative to Jingwan. As for whether they could hide from Li Hongyuan, it was hard to say. However, Li Hongyuan was still pushing the swing rhythmically, not moving at all. Not only did Granny Gong ask people to bring stools, she also prepared fruits and tea. From the looks of it, she did not mind at all how long they had to do it. These people had long been used to being tortured by their own two masters. They should let outsiders have a taste. Jingwan was completely unaware that there was a group of onlookers beside her. She was still having fun. As for the 6 people who stayed, they had different thoughts. The 3 women were more or less a little envious, jealous, and hateful in their hearts. Say, how could Jin Qinhuang be such a man? Could it be fake? Even if it was during Jingwan's birthday banquet last time, they had already seen some clues, but they didn't expect that when it was completely in private, it would be to this extent. This was completely a devoted and infatuated type who only had his own wife in his heart. If it was other people, those people who had always been clean and honest, they would definitely be able to easily accept it and even feel that it was natural. However, this person was Jin Qinhuang, so this feeling was completely not on the same level. That's why, Wan Mimi's life is really good. However, this is also how it should be. Wan Mimi is such a good person. If her husband did not treat her well, then he would be guilty of 10,000 deaths. Sun Yijia sighed. The little bit of emotion in her heart also disappeared, and she happily looked on. Luo Jingbo glanced at Sun Yijia, then looked at the maidservants and guards beside her. Each and every one of them acted as if they did not hear anything. He silently chose to shut his mouth, but he secretly prayed in his heart that his wife would not say any more shocking words. Saying that Jin Qinhuang guilty of 10,000 deaths in front of so many people. Did he really want to die? Even if it was the truth, it could not be said so casually. Sun Yijia seemed to know her husband's thoughts. She turned back to look at him and gave him an elegant supercilious look. What are you afraid of? Their Wang Fei is in front of them. Even if Jin Qinhuang knows, what can he do? That's why you are so fearless. In any case, she was born in Duke Dingfu, which was a 1,000-year-old aristocratic family. She had a first-class upbringing. How did she become such an insolent person? This was the common thought in everyone's mind. Luo Jingbo did not refute his wife because what his wife said was reasonable. The other 2 big men beside him became more and more stifled. They could even foresee their own miserable future. They did not have any desire to eat fruits, tea, or whatever. They were already full from looking at it. That's why they did not realize that they were actually full from being fed dog food. Generally speaking, this kind of scene was definitely self-abuse. Usually, no one would foolishly continue to look at it. However, Sun Yijia stood firm and the other 2 women followed. The rest could only be helpless. Unknowingly, Jingwan stopped and quietly sat on the swing. Her head leaned against the rope at the side and quietly looked at Li Hongyuan. Because Li Hongyuan unexpectedly took a chin from the begonia tree and sat on the ground. The chin was placed on his lap and the sentimental music unhurriedly floated out. Many petals also fell on the surrounding grass. The swing stopped and the falling petals also slowed down. It must be said that the several people who were melon eaters all had a certain level of cultivation in the field of music. After all, this was a compulsory course. Even if they did not know how to play, they still had a basic level of appreciation. Jin Qinhuang's qin skills were simply beyond people's expectations. That song could be said to be soft and tender, expressing the meaning of love. Sun Yijia was unexpectedly silent. Or perhaps, at this moment, she was truly relieved of Jingwan. Her attainments in the art of the qin were naturally extraordinary. She was very clear that the difference between a song that was played with pure skills and a song that was played with sincere feelings could be said to be the difference between heaven and earth. Just like now, if Jin Qinhuang did not love Wan Mimi to the extreme, he would absolutely not be able to play such a song. Just by listening to it, it could soften a person's heart, as if she was carefully held in the palm of his hand and placed on top of his heart. At this moment, she finally admitted that Jin Qinhuang was not so annoying. Sun Yijia stood up. It's about time, let's go. You're leaving. Cousin-in-law, wait for the Lantern Festival. Wait until you finish listening to this song before you leave. Sun Yijia laughed. Listen to it before you leave. I'm afraid that after you finish listening, you will dislike someone to death. As she said this, she glanced at Yuan Xiao's husband with ridicule. The other party was a bit embarrassed, and Yuan Xiao also reacted. Alright, there was also a bit of embarrassment on her face. The three big men were naturally eager to leave. If this continued, it would really not be good. On the way out, Yuan Xiao returned to her original nature. Everyone says that Jin Qinhuang is worthless. Who would have thought that he would be so powerful? Cousin-in-law, you say, us married women have all been affected. If those people at Wan Mimi's birthday banquet who had thoughts about Jin Qinhuang, what would they do if they heard it? First of all, it's impossible for them to hear it. It's impossible for them to hear a song, let alone one that was played from the heart. Secondly, even if they accidentally heard it, would they have the courage to risk death or injury to throw themselves at it? Sun Yijia sneered. She couldn't even touch the corner of his clothes, yet she was still thinking about those useless things. Tisk. Sun Yijia was originally a very intelligent woman. She was now very suspicious of Jin Qinhuang's so-called wife jinxing fate. It was hard to say about the previous ones, but were the previous ones really jinxed them? Soon after, Sun Yijia looked at Yuan Xiao again and reached out to pat her. Some words shouldn't be spoken irresponsibly. In any case, leave some face for your husband. Being affected by another man's zither music or something, Yuan Xiao's husband's face was indeed a bit gloomy. Yuan Xiao looked over, unrepentant, and stuck out her tongue at him in a place where other people couldn't see, making funny faces like a child. This man was very clear about his wife's nature. What was there to be gloomy about? His heart was full of helplessness. However, although the women he came into contact with were wrong, there were still quite a few. There were older sisters and younger sisters in the family, as well as older sisters-in-law and the cousins outside. There were very few who had a heart as pure as his wife. Getting along with her was much more comfortable than getting along with other people. Just based on this, he was willing to protect her, pamper her, and tolerate her a little. Luo Jingbei and Luo Jingming, before Yuan Xiao's marriage, had interacted with this young master of the capital magistrate's family. Their relationship could be considered quite good. At this moment, they both revealed an ambiguous smile. After all, they more or less knew about this younger cousin's temperament. They came and left, but Jingwan didn't know it all. At this moment, she was engrossed in listening to the zither music. Sun Yijia, who was relatively indifferent to Jin Qinhuang, had a soft heart. What about her, who was at the center? What about her, who was the subject of the zither master? Jingwan looked straight at Li Hongyuan's deep eyes, which were filled with the same feelings as the zither music. Jingwan felt that it wouldn't be too much to drink herself to death inside. After Li Hongyuan changed the song, Jingwan softly opened her mouth. "Ah Yuan." Li Hongyuan didn't answer, but his eyes showed that he was waiting for her to speak. "Change it, my heart can't take it anymore." Her heart was beating a little fast. Li Hongyuan chuckled, "Okay." In reality, Jingwan wasn't much different from being drunk right now. Because of her accelerated heartbeat, her face was flushed red, and the corners of her eyes were flushed red like waves of passion. Her eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of mist. Li Hongyuan saw this and felt that Jingwan, who was under the crabapple tree at this moment, was simply beautiful to the extreme. However, there wasn't any desire in his heart. Regarding this moment of spiritual integration, it was also an extreme enjoyment. After that, Li Hongyuan changed the song, which was more lively and suited the beautiful spring scenery. Jingwan also gradually calmed down. That's right. Her man wasn't useless. He was omnipotent. After another song, Li Hongyuan casually put the zither aside, got up, and walked to Jingwan's side. He reached out to lift her chin and kissed her on the lips. Then, he lifted her up and sat on the swing. With one hand holding Jingwan in his arms and the other holding the rope, he touched the ground with one foot. With a slight force, the swing swayed in a small arc with the two of them. Occasionally, petals would fall, and Jingwan would reach out to catch them. Then, she would gently blow at them and watch them float further away. Looking at them, she couldn't help but smile. Occasionally, they would whisper, as if they were reminiscing about the past and looking forward to the future. When it was quiet enough, they began to go crazy everywhere. By the time they returned to the villa, the sun was already setting in the west. That was to say, the two of them went out after breakfast and came back before dinner. Lunch? They ate a lot along the way. How could they be hungry? After all, when they were almost done playing, sitting together to eat something was also a kind of fun. When they had dinner and digested the food, Jingwan knew that Sun Yijia and the others had come. Nanny Gong told her that the prince and princess Yu didn't see any guests today, so they left after sitting for a while. Jingwan didn't ask any more questions. She didn't want to neglect her relatives and friends. Her wedding anniversary with her husband was more important. After digesting the food, Jingwan began to pack up the biggest gift of the day, which was 90 jade dolls. Jingwan felt that she should prepare a special cabinet of many treasures. These dolls shouldn't be buried at the bottom of the box, but should be placed in front of her. In the end, when they fell asleep, Li Hongyuan didn't see the surprise prepared by his wife. His eyes flashed, but he didn't ask. He roughly understood that the surprise prepared by his wife was probably a birthday gift for him. However, Li Hongyuan became more and more curious about the fact that she had started to prepare so early. That was true. Wanwan had already said that she would let him arrange everything for today. As for the arrangements, he naturally had to make all the arrangements. Because their hearts and minds were intertwined during the day, their harmony at night would be more harmonious and wonderful. https://11/11807/115264443 Mobile Edition. Chapter 473. If this went on, the living king of hell would most likely become a fatuous ruler from time to time in the future. However, whether he was a fatuous ruler or not, to Li Hongyuan, it really didn't affect him. In any case, he had already been a tyrant before, but he was very confident. Even if he was a fatuous ruler, as long as he didn't deliberately play around, Qi Yuan's country wouldn't collapse. However, with Jingwan by his side, he wanted to give her the glory and splendor of the Golden Age. How could he go crazy and play around with Qi Yuan's country? In the days that followed, it could be said that the two people didn't pay attention to outside matters, wholeheartedly only accompanying the other person. In addition to half of the time that Jingwan was busy preparing the birthday gift for Li Hongyuan, the other half was the two people holding hands to wind, flower, snow and moon, painting together, growing flowers together, playing, riding horses, and seeing the precious beast's garden that a certain person used all his strength to build. It really was flying in the sky, running on the ground, living in the water, everything that should be there was there. If this super garden was really known by people, the memorials to impeach Wang would be piled up with Lu Qingdi's imperial case. Jingwan was more or less a bit worried. No matter how much Lu Qingdi favored this son, he was still the emperor. Thinking about the history of her previous life, there was a certain emperor who only built a leopard house. Although other people might have built a tiger city, elephant house, leopard house, pigeon house, deer farm, eagle house, and many other places to raise animals, the number was limited and almost turned into dogs. Well, it was said that those were places for pleasure, but they were also labeled as extravagant. Those things, compared to the current precious beast's garden, were completely not on the same level. Li Hongyuan didn't care. The people who went to various places to search for these things were all the ones that I asked for from him. It was completely done in the open. No matter how they impeach, it's just extravagance. Using the crime of extravagance to impeach me is completely meaningless. Who doesn't know that Wang is extravagant by nature? Well, some worries were indeed superfluous. Since a certain person dared to do it, then there definitely wouldn't be any problems. Even if there was a problem, it could definitely be solved. He had no worries at all and was completely unrestrained. He was having a lot of fun. Of course, Jingwan was determined not to let her brain become numb. From that day onwards, she dealt with some matters every day without fail. Recently, it was relatively peaceful, so Jingwan almost took care of all the matters in Li Hongyuan. If it was someone else, their wife being so motivated, they might think that she was harboring evil intentions. On the contrary, Li Hongyuan was happy and relaxed. While Jingwan was burying her head in hard work, he leisurely took a book, made a cup of tea, or prepared some good wine. While he was at it, he would also order some dishes to go with the wine. Occasionally, he would also ask the musicians to play some soothing tunes outside. Afterwards, he would comfortably half lean back. How could he be so satisfied? Jingwan was gnashing her teeth as she watched. Especially when she encountered more brain-burning matters, she really wanted to strangle him to death. Several times, she wanted to go on strike. Why did she have to work herself to death while a certain person was leisurely? These matters were still his matters. However, every time this happened, Li Hongyuan would always coolly look at her. When doing things, you must finish what you started. You can't give up halfway. At the beginning, it was Wan herself who asked for it. How can you not do it because it's hard? This husband will comply with you, but this matter is absolutely not allowed. Jingwan wanted to vomit blood. Was she afraid of working too hard? That was not the case at all, okay? It was just that the contrast was too obvious, and she felt seriously unbalanced. Jingwan also sneered, "Then please move away, prince. Don't hinder me here. Look at what Wan is saying. First, this husband didn't say anything. Second, I didn't disturb you. How am I hindering you? This husband just saw that Wan was working hard and wanted to be by your side like you always do. Wan used to be like this. Wan was very happy. I thought that Wan would also be happy if this husband did this. Now, hearing Wan say this husband can't help but feel sad. What did it mean to talk nonsense with a straight face? This was a typical example. However, Jingwan could not give him a taste of his own medicine, because this trick did not work on her at all. If you enjoy it, he will enjoy it with you. You don't have to worry about things being unfinished. This was the difference between them. She could not drive him away or destroy him. Jingwan could only continue to work bitterly and not look at him. Out of sight, out of mind. Out of sight, out of mind. She immersed all her thoughts in the business, and is certain someone's existence was dispensable. Jingwan was serious, so Li Hongyuan stopped reading and just stared at her attentively. After finishing the last task, Jingwan felt a little stiff all over. Before she could move, Li Hongyuan was already standing behind her, gently massaging her shoulders and neck. Jingwan exhaled, grabbed Li Hongyuan's hand, and rubbed it comfortably. Then, she realized in hindsight, that's not right, Yuan. At that time, I clearly said that no matter how much I was in charge of, I would only be responsible for half. And, what's the problem? Li Hongyuan's expression did not change. But these were all handled by me. Jingwan hatefully said. Because only half of them were sent. I have already handled the other half. Li Hongyuan said calmly without blushing or skipping a beat. Jingwan looked up and saw a certain someone smiling lightly. Forget it, she had already seen this face of his. There was no need to expose the fact that her IQ was not as good as his. She got up, I'm tired. Go back to sleep. Today, I need a mama to help me loosen my muscles and bones. Your Highness, you should rest first. Li Hongyuan rubbed his fingers and laughed. Was he being driven out of the room by his wife in disguise? However, the thick-skinned certain someone expressed that, not to mention in disguise, even if it was directly, it was impossible to drive him out. The days were so leisurely and bitter, idle and fulfilling. The 12th of the 3rd month, the death anniversary of the Imperial Gui Fei, Jin Qinhuang's birthday. Perhaps because he knew that the Imperial Gui Fei was still alive, Luqing Emperor didn't seem to be in an abnormal state this year. However, in some people's eyes, he was even more unreasonable. At least for the past few days, Luqing Emperor didn't go to court. All day long, he hugged the portrait of the Imperial Gui Fei and mumbled nonsense. He even hoped that the Imperial Gui Fei would possess the portrait. Then, the frequency of the two words "you honor" from his mouth became higher and higher. Hearing it made people's hearts tremble. His fear of Li Hongyuan became deeper and deeper, and his killing intent increased day by day. However, it was obvious that he did not dare to act rashly at this time. Because once he was investigated, even if he was not executed on the surface, he might be killed in private. Imperial Gui Fei was also in an unprecedented state of irritation. Although on the surface, she was still considered normal. Thinking about it, she thought that everything was in her hands, but in the end, there was a mistake. Her own son was poisoned by the same poison. Because it was the same thing, she began to be suspicious and thought that it was the Imperial Gui Fei's revenge. It was not that she did not have other suspicions, but it was too much of a coincidence. The idea of revenge always prevailed. Thus, no one wanted the Imperial Gui Fei's ritual to succeed more than her. Her attitude towards Li Hongyuan also changed fundamentally. However, just like in previous years, she had people prepare a table of food and send it over to Li Hongyuan. However, this year, Imperial Gui Fei was definitely not the only imperial concubine who was thinking about Li Hongyuan. Imperial Gui Fei also had people prepare things in private. In the past, there was no way, but now that the mother and son had recognized each other, how could the Imperial Gui Fei be indifferent? Of course, when Li Hongyuan was in the teeth of the storm, such a behavior would cause trouble if she was not careful. However, Imperial Gui Fei did not refuse. No one knew better than her how torturous it was for the Imperial Gui Fei in her body. In addition, Great Elder Princess and the two elders of the Luo family also sent gifts to Li Hongyuan. As for the table of food, it was casually ordered to be rewarded. It was obvious that Imperial Gue Fei would not be stupid enough to do anything to it. Therefore, Jingwan felt no pressure to reward people. Li Hongyuan glanced at Jingwan and did not say anything. The success rate of taking action was high when others thought that it was impossible to take action. Moreover, this table of food had changed hands several times, and there could be problems at any time. Now there were many people who wanted to take action against him. As his mother, Imperial Gue Fei treated Li Hongyuan well, so she could not be suspected. Moreover, since Imperial Gue Fei could get the sterilization powder, which was usually undetectable, it was hard to guarantee that there would not be a second kind of poison. Of course, it was also possible that there was nothing wrong with any table of food. However, Li Hongyuan was too lazy to care about these things. Now, his wife said that she was going to give him a birthday gift. After being mysterious for so long, it was finally time to unveil the veil. Now, except for this, he was not interested in anything else at all. There were open-air hot springs behind the main courtyard, and naturally, there were also built bathing pools. The entire bathing pool was very large. Because it was above the hot springs, there was no need for the existence of an earth dragon. At this moment, the surrounding gauze curtains were put down. There was no water in the bathing pool, so it was warm enough and not foggy. A large area next to the bathing pool was originally paved with white marble, but now it was covered with a dark carpet. Li Hongyuan looked at the arhat bed, which was placed well. There was a small jade table on it, as well as good wine and food. Li Hongyuan gently raised the corners of his mouth and walked over unhurriedly. The arhat bed was covered with a soft cushion and a big pillow. How could he fail to live up to such good intentions? Li Hongyuan sat down and leaned back, leisurely and languid. He was no longer as strict as before. He pulled at his collar, and a certain aura on his body instantly soared. Li Hongyuan poured a glass of wine, and music sounded in his ears. Directly in front of his eyes, a figure appeared behind the gauze curtain. Judging from the figure, it was his wife. There were two soft sounds outside, and the music in his ears changed. Jing Wan's cloak that was tightly wrapped around her body slid down. However, there was still a layer of transparent white gauze on her body. Along with the music, Jing Wan placed one hand on her head and the other open. She moved with the dance steps and parted the curtain. Step by step, she stepped forward. Li Hongyuan's eyes narrowed slightly. Although he had expected that it might be related to dancing, when he really saw it, he was still quite surprised, or rather, quite happy. Although the white gauze was wide, because it was transparent, he could see everything inside. A gorgeously decorated tube top. It should be a tube top, but it was like two petals, tightly wrapped around the snowy peaks. Her flexible waist, without a trace of fat, was perfect, and there were jewels on her navel. A palm-wide waist belt wrapped around her crotch, and there was a net-like bead chain outside, which was relatively thin. Inside the belt, there was also a transparent low-waisted white gauze skirt, and inside, the underwear was also clearly visible. Her bare feet, and there was also a chain around her ankle. Because the color of the carpet was dark, the contrast was very obvious, and it was also exceptionally beautiful. Li Hongyuan couldn't help but sit up straight, and his body leaned forward slightly. Although Jing Wan and Li Hongyuan couldn't be more intimate, being stared at like this still made her feel a little uncomfortable. However, her body was a great attraction to her husband, and it seemed to be something to be happy about. Therefore, Jing Wan endured, twirled, and danced, and the wide gauze fluttered. https://11/11807115264446 HTML Chapter 474. Her waist swayed and at a certain point, her veil was lifted, revealing her exquisite makeup. The music suddenly became faster and Jingwan's waist also followed the rapid swaying. Wearing the accessories on her body, it was exceptionally dazzling. Her feet touched the ground and she gorgeously turned around. She rapidly moved her arms. Only then did they discover that there was a cut at the back of the waistband and the seam of her buttocks was faintly discernible. Her beautiful hair, after being slightly styled, the ends of her hair just happened to be above the two shallow dimples. The dancing frequency was too fast, as if there were afterimages, making people dizzy. At least, Arjin Qinhuang's eyes became more serene and serene. His mouth was a bit dry and his body seemed to have drunk too much. Feeling a bit hot, he reached out and pulled his collar open a bit more. But in fact, he hadn't even drunk the second cup of wine. Holding it in his hand, the cup was already a bit cracked. Jingwan turned sideways and her gaze fell on Li Hongyuan's body. It seemed that because she had started, it wasn't that difficult to continue. Her dancing body became more relaxed and with a very shallow smile, the amorous light in her eyes, the frequency of the movements at her waist also decreased. Slanting towards Li Hongyuan, the top of her hips turned outwards, circling round and round. Her hand fluttered above her head and then retracted, as if it was not there, it brushed past her own body, chest, waist, and abdomen. Her body continued to turn a few more rounds, the gauze skirt along with the beaded necklace all flew apart. The temptation of the previous moment, at this moment, brought about elegance and gentleness. Following that, Jingwan's waist was like a water snake, swaying back and forth. Naturally, the position under the flower petals on her chest also drew out an obvious arc. With a bang, the wine in Li Hongyuan's hand was finally scrapped. The wine dripped down along with his palm, but he didn't care at all. He casually shook it twice and leaned back, lifting one leg to step on the arhat bed. He raised his hand to support his cheek. Regarding the changes in his body, he didn't conceal it at all. However, the expression on his face didn't change. There was neither forbearance nor pain. When Jingwan first entered the capital, at Dingguo Gongfu, for some reason, Sun Yijia performed a dance in public. Li Hongyuan's gaze wasn't on Sun Yijia's body. His thoughts were all kinds of drifting, thinking about the scene of Jingwan performing a dance, especially the kind where one piece of clothing was missing. Later, when their relationship became intimate and even married, he forgot about this matter. The effect of today's dance was countless times better than expected. Speaking of which, Li Hongyuan had a rough idea of what Jingwan had learned. Although Jingwan was only 8 or 9 years old when he first sent people to Qi and prefecture, how could a girl from an official's family learn this kind of dance before the age of 8 or 9? No matter when she started learning it, it should be more proper and orthodox, just like Sun Yijia. Then, when did Wanwan learn it? The answer was obvious. According to common sense, since she was able to perform this dance for him as a birthday gift, then she definitely wouldn't have learned it under any humiliating circumstances. After all, their hearts were connected. There was no need for her to lower herself and deliberately seek his favor. Moreover, during the entire preparation process, he didn't feel any negative emotions from her. Therefore, she simply wanted to perform it for him to see and add a bit of fun between husband and wife. Thinking about all these, this dance should be quite ordinary for Wanwan in the past. Li Hongyuan secretly clicked his tongue in his heart. He was a little unhappy. His Wanwan might have been seen by someone else. Jingwan didn't know that Li Hongyuan's mind had thought so much in such a short time. She was focused on the rhythm of the music. Towards the end, she became more and more open. Like flowing water, like waves, like a burning flame, she freely used her body to express herself. Her arms spread out like wings and her head danced like a snake. She shook her hips and body to her heart's content. Sometimes she was elegant, sometimes charming, sometimes delicate, and sometimes a little arrogant. Her eyes seemed to move along with the mood of the dance. It was very sexy, very seductive, and very provocative. It made people's hearts tremble. The charming special capital was vividly displayed by Jingwan. It was too much for the eyes to take in. In the end, Jingwan's body knelt on the ground. Her body bent backward and stretched to the maximum angle. The curve from her neck to her legs was fully displayed. The music had stopped. Jingwan maintained this posture and looked at Li Hongyuan from the bottom to the top. Because the choreography took a little long, Jingwan's breathing was a little rapid. Her chest was obviously moving up and down. There was also a thin layer of sweat, which seemed to be soft and watery. Especially in the position where Li Hongyuan was standing, the cleavage was prominent and indescribably attractive. The evil fire aroused by Jingwan was completely ignited. After the dance, if he could still sit still, he would really be a saint. He suddenly stood up. 3 steps turned into 2 steps. He bent down and hooked his arm. Jingwan followed his strength and stood up. She put one hand on his shoulder and the other on his chest. Li Hongyuan deliberately held her waist very tightly so that she could clearly feel his body's reaction. Li Hongyuan's other hand started from her cheek and slowly stroked down. Wan, are you satisfied with the effect of your dance? Jingwan suddenly laughed. Her hand mischievously touched Li Hongyuan's body. She even raised a leg and wrapped it around his leg. Slowly, she moved it up to his waist. Her breath smelled like orchids. Wang, are you satisfied? Li Hongyuan's hand paused. Then he held Jingwan's leg and pushed the layer of gauze to the base of her thigh. I've never seen Wan so enthusiastic. It seems that in the past, I didn't love Wan enough. This time, I will make Wan completely satisfied. Wan said that she won't get up for a few days, so we won't get up for a few days. Hey! Jingwan's head moved back. Although from the beginning, when she chose, it would definitely lead to this situation. She wanted to tease him, but she had prepared for so long and put in so much effort. Don't just focus on the result and completely ignore the dance. Wang still hasn't told this concubine. Are you satisfied with this birthday gift? The king of hell didn't lack anything, so it was quite difficult to give him a gift that he was satisfied with. As for why Jingwan knew how to do belly dance, it was all thanks to her mother in her previous life. One day, she was dragged by one of her best friends to learn it on a whim. She said that it could help her lose weight and shape her waist. She didn't know why her mother wanted to dance, but later on, her mother suddenly dragged her to learn it. Jingwan learned it. She was quite talented in it, and because of her good foundation in yoga, she learned it. In the end, she even beat the instructor. After the accident at home, there was a long period of turmoil. Later on, when she settled down, she would occasionally dance. But after she came to this world, she was too young at first. Later on, dancing like this was absolutely offensive to public morals. If people found out, she would be scolded to death. After all, she estimated that even the women in the brothel couldn't dance to this level. Naturally, she was forgotten in a corner. She didn't know why, but when she was thinking about preparing a birthday gift for someone, she didn't know why she remembered it. Although she had been neglected for a long time, but some things, once learned, would always be remembered. Even when she first picked it up, she spent a lot of time practicing the basic skills. After all, Jingwan wasn't a professional choreographer. If she wanted to find a song that met her requirements and wanted to make a good dance, it was actually a short period of time. After all, she couldn't ask for help. However, who asked those musicians to be so awesome? They had songs that gave her inspiration. After getting through the difficult initial stage, everything went smoothly. However, in the end, it was Jingwan who figured out the choreography by herself. Moreover, she didn't stick to any school. She just showed the essence of belly dance. The other parts were added casually. She just did it as she liked. From the many dressing mirrors, she felt that the effect was quite good. However, it was hard to guarantee how it would look in the eyes of others. Li Hongyuan naturally understood Jingwan's meaning and affirmed her efforts and results. Very good. Really? Ah, Yuan, don't love me for my dog. I have seen a lot of dances. I don't know how many kinds of dances there are. I think that my level of appreciation is still good enough. Jingwan understood. Her eyebrows and eyes curved into a smile, but this smile didn't last for a moment. Oh. Her body trembled slightly. She couldn't help but moan. She grabbed Li Hongyuan's mischievous hand. We can talk about this later. Wan should continue to send the gifts now. Li Hongyuan said. He held her neck and kissed her. His other hand became more and more unruly. Jingwan held his neck and catered to his kiss. She was reluctant to part with him. Li Hongyuan picked up Jingwan and walked to the side of the arhat bed. He kicked away the jade table with wine. The jade table slid to the edge. The slender wine bottle on top shook and then fell down. The clear wine spilled out. However, the two people at the side didn't care about the wine. Li Hongyuan was burned by the evil fire and almost lost his reason. He only wanted to tear Jingwan apart and eat her. Jingwan was under his hands and naturally couldn't be distracted. The task was completed. The musicians outside naturally should leave quickly. However, some people dilly-dallied for some unknown purpose. However, Jingwan's maidservants and mamas wouldn't give them a chance. As the musicians of Jin Qin Wang Fu, if they overstepped their duty, they would definitely not have a good ending. No matter how good their skills were or how beautiful they were, it was the same. Although the people around Jingwan didn't know what dance Jingwan was dancing, but Jingwan's clothes were made by them. They didn't know the process, but the final result could be guessed. Therefore, everyone was well aware of what was going on inside. They consciously walked a little further away and the rest were not allowed to enter. Now was an unusual time. No matter what the reason was for the dawdling musician, Gong Mama expressionlessly greeted Mu Gonggong and told him how to deal with it. Mu Gonggong was an expert in this field. And Jingwan's death-seeking aroused Li Hongyuan to this point. It was obvious that the pleasure of fish and water would not end so easily. At least, during this period, Li Hongyuan let Gong Mama come in and change the water in the bath 3 times. And in the whole place, there were many traces of lovemaking. Fortunately, it was more convenient for the bath to be filled with water and it was easy to clean. Otherwise, changing the water once was not an easy task, let alone one person to do it. Every time Gong Mama came in, she didn't look sideways because she was used to this kind of thing. Jingwan also wouldn't be shy and play dead-like at the beginning. At most, she would be together with a certain someone and use something to cover her body. In fact, towards the end, Gong Mama wanted to say something but hesitated. She wanted to persuade Wang Yi to restrain himself a little. Too much indulgence was not good for Wang Fei's health. That's right, she only cared about Jingwan. Li Hongyuan had nothing to do with her. But after thinking about it, he wouldn't listen even if she said it. She would just pay attention to Wang Fei's health. Besides, it wasn't like he did it every night. Once he did it too hard, the days after were still relatively long. In the end, Jin Qinhuang didn't really have a sense of propriety. When the living king of hell stopped, the outside was already shrouded in the curtain of night. Dinner time had already passed. Therefore, it wasn't hard to see why the gift was sent out in the middle of the day. If the gift was sent before going to bed, she wouldn't be able to sleep well. For people with a regular schedule, if they didn't go to bed on time, it would definitely be very bad. At this time, Li Hongyuan was holding Jingwan and sitting in the huge bath. There was a layer of flower petals scattered on top of the bath. The steam was rising and the fragrance was overflowing. Compared to here, Li Hongyuan actually preferred to soak in the open-air hot spring outside. The water was up to her chest. Li Hongyuan gently massaged Jingwan's waist to ease the discomfort in her waist. At the same time, he opened his mouth. Wan's dance today, who else saw it? Every day, she practiced alone. The musicians were all outside playing. It's not like you don't know. Who else could have seen it? Jingwan leaned on his body and didn't want to move at all. After a long period of vigorous exercise, even with her physique that had been exercising for a long time, her hands and feet were soft and her whole body was powerless. She could only play with a strand of his hair with her fingers as she lazily said. It was said that there were only tired cows and no land that was plowed. However, the cow known as the living king of hell was too strong. After such a consumption, he still looked like nothing happened. On the contrary, Jingwan's land was really unbearable. Then, what about when you were learning this dance? A certain person's eyes were dark and unfathomable. He still had the energy to care about these things. Jingwan finally understood. She snorted in laughter. This jealousy was too unreasonable. Every time I wore this kind of clothing. At most, it was low-waisted trousers and a long-sleeved top that exposed the navel. However, if a certain person saw that kind of clothing, he would probably still be jealous. Therefore, it was better not to talk about the details. However, Li Hongyuan's IQ was not damaged at all now. Thinking of the appearance of Jingwan when she danced, if the most prominent position of the whole dance was covered tightly, what effect could it have? It was enough to show that even when she first learned, at least her waist was exposed. His wife was silly now and thought that he was easy to fool. However, there were some things that couldn't be cared too much. If he cared too much about it, it would really be meaningless and hurt feelings. It took him half an hour to calm down. Although he still didn't want to move, his stomach was already protesting. https://11/11807/116345777 HTML. Chapter 475. A level 9 handicap would be in high spirits the next day. Therefore, if Wang wanted his wife to not be able to get out of bed for a few days, it was basically impossible, unless he really hurt her. But would Li Hongyuan do that? Certainly not. During breakfast, Li Hongyuan seemed to have thought of something. Qingzhu, what instructions does Wang Ye have? Qingzhu, who was serving at the side, hurriedly crouched and asked. Jingwan also looked at him curiously. What about Wang Fei's clothes from yesterday? Li Hongyuan asked faintly. When he said this, not only the servant girls, even Jingwan blushed a little. If it was in her previous life, then she wouldn't say anything. That kind of clothes was not a big deal, but it was different now. It had been more than 10 years, Jingwan's thoughts must have been greatly affected. Thinking about it, when that dress was mentioned, what would the people around her think? How could she not be angry? Without thinking, she subconsciously kicked him under the table and glared at him, telling him to shut up. Li Hongyuan was not the least bit affected and even gave Jingwan some food to eat. Qingzhu vaguely sized up the two masters, replying to Wang Ye, Wang Fei's clothes have been washed. Then after you bring it back, keep it well. Li Hongyuan's expression was still indifferent. Keep it for what? I won't wear it in the future. Deal with it. This kind of thing, it was done once. Was there a next time? Li Hongyuan glanced at Jingwan and continued to eat unhurriedly. After a moment, he opened his mouth. Some special things, even if you don't use it in the future, you should keep it well. Just like Wan's red wedding dress. Although it was two different sets of clothes, could the two be compared? That emotional woman, she might think that it was belittling her. But if it was Li Hongyuan, Jingwan knew that the meaning was absolutely the opposite. Wang Ye thinks highly of it. Li Hongyuan waved his hand and dismissed the servants. To your husband, it is naturally important. After all, this is the first time someone has celebrated my birthday so solemnly. Li Hongyuan's expression did not change at all, but Jingwan immediately felt distressed. She reached out and held Li Hongyuan's hand. Ah, Yuan, I'm here. I'll be there for you in the future. Wan didn't even want to leave her clothes behind. Jingwan seemed to have heard the accusation, saying that she would be there in the future. In the end, he didn't even want to leave behind a single piece of clothing. He was simply insincere. If Yuan likes it, he can stay. Jingwan felt that she was digging a hole for herself. My wife is so easy to coax. However, only someone who truly cared about you would be like this, because she was willing to be coaxed by you. Then every year in the future, on my birthday, Wan will dance for me, okay? Until you can't dance anymore. This was what it meant to be insatiable. Jingwan's expression cracked a little. She retracted her hand. What heartache. She should have fed it to the dogs. She expressionlessly said, how can you give me the same gift every year? For some things, once is enough. Besides, when I'm 50 or 60 years old, I might still be very healthy. If you dance then, you won't be afraid that you'll be blind. Do whatever you want. Jingwan did not intend to pay attention to him. She was still not full. Li Hongyuan had long stopped caring about the fact that no one had ever given him a birthday. Even in his previous life, when he became the emperor, he did not take a birthday celebration seriously at all. The courtiers earnestly advised him, and whether he wanted to do it or not depended entirely on his mood. However, when someone had no other purpose and had carefully prepared a gift for you, how could he be indifferent? People were greedy. If there was one, there would naturally be another. Even if Wan's teeth fell out, your husband would still kiss her. What's the point of dancing at 60 years old? 60 years old might still be the same as yesterday. Li Hongyuan calmly looked at Jingwan, as if he was still a little unsatisfied. Then I'm sorry. You're not blind, but I don't have the cheek to dance. Speaking of which, a body covered in orange peel, belly dancing. What kind of international joke was this? That was not sexy, it was purely an eyesore. Would it still be the same as yesterday? His body did not want to, and his heart probably did not want to. And a man in his 60s or 70s hugging a little girl to warm the bed was very normal. TSK, thinking of this, her heart seemed to be unhappy. Although it was really boring to ask if someone would have a change of heart after a few decades. Li Hongyuan moved to Jingwan's side and leaned close to her ear. At 60 years old, Wan is still as beautiful as a flower. Jingwan cast a sidelong glance at him and sneered, at 60 years old, Yuan is a mess of an old man. Is that so? Li Hongyuan hugged Jingwan and kissed her, isn't that just right? Messy old men all like beautiful women. His skin was super thick, and he was even more gluttonous. Therefore, this kind of thing, in the end, basically, all roads lead to the same destination. Fortunately, a certain person had eaten his fill yesterday. Even if he was still in the mood now, he would not do anything in consideration of Jingwan's body. At most, he would just kiss and touch her. Yesterday's matter was not dealt with, so it would definitely take a little more time today. Moreover, it would be dealt with after breakfast, and not piled up until the evening. Regarding Jingwan's dedication to her job, the subordinates expressed that compared to her, Wang Yi seemed to be a little too unqualified. Everyone had already expected that in the future, when Wang Fei was fully familiar with these matters, Wang Yi would completely wash his hands of the matter and directly look for Wang Fei whenever there was a problem. In Li Hongyuan's eyes, he was the one who usurped the throne. Those who did not know would think that it was his wife, TSK. Jingwan was dealing with matters while listening to Imperial bodyguard Qian and Yi's report about Jing City. Although he was no longer a hidden guard, it was not different from what he did before. After all, he was more familiar with it, but he was sure that he would not be sent out on missions again. Yesterday evening, the imperial physician diagnosed Princess Rui's pregnancy pulse. Hearing this, Jingwan stopped what she was doing and turned to look at Li Hongyuan. Is she really pregnant? If not, she would definitely not dare to let the imperial physician diagnose her pulse with great fanfare. Li Hongming's luck is really good. Li Hongyuan did not have any reaction, but, even if she is really pregnant, so what? At that time, it will not only confuse the royal bloodline, but also Princess Rui's promiscuity in the imperial harem, or Prince Rui can't have children. For the sake of the throne, he will not hesitate to let an outsider defile his princess. It will be more fun, right? Jingwan was silent. Prince Rui had already taken the sterilization powder. The person who drugged her must know that she could not have children. Then, no matter how the child came about, there must be a problem. It was like yellow mud falling into the crotch of the trousers. If it was not that, it would be that. According to someone's plan, if she was really pregnant, it would be worse than a fake pregnancy. Although this plan was a little vicious, Jingwan did not mean to stop it at all. On the contrary, if she is really pregnant, it may not be a boy. In this case, it must be a boy just in case. After all, there may not be another chance in the imperial harem of Prince Rui's mansion. Of course, this child must be a boy. Where do you think this child will come from, Your Highness? No matter where it comes from, it's okay if it is not used. Once it is used, it will be a dead end. That was an innocent little life. Wan's emotions are always written on her face. Well, don't think so much. I will try my best to keep the child and let the child return to his parents. However, Wan, you have to know that this may not be a good thing for the child. Jingwan certainly understood that the child who could be chosen was very likely to have some problems. For example, he was not expected by others, and someone did not want the child to exist. Because the more it was like this, the more the tail could be cleaned as much as possible. Ah Yuan, help if you can. If it will cause you trouble, just ignore it. No matter whether the child is innocent or not, it is an outsider. You are the most important. Her compassion was based on a premise. Li Hongyuan smiled, it's not a big deal. Jingwan also smiled. She put this matter aside and waited for the child to be born. But now, imperial concubine Su and the others still could not relax because of this. After all, when they did not know the mastermind behind the scenes, they would inevitably be on tenterhooks. They did not know if the mastermind behind the scenes would play any tricks again. It was necessary to be 120% vigilant. Just thinking about it was tiring. Adoptive mother has not sent anyone to send the invitation yet. It is very likely that she will not hold a birthday banquet. Probably. Li Hongyuan was not interested. It did not matter whether these things were held or not. If they were held, they would just give face and make a trip. It would be better if they were not held. Recently, he was a little lazy and did not want to move. Then let's prepare the horse racing invitation, how about it? Up to you. Li Hongyuan said lazily, his whole body leaning on the couch again. Ah Yuan, are you sleepy? Seeing him like this, Jingwan could not help but tease him. Probably. His eyes were half closed, as if he would fall asleep at any time. Jingwan looked at him, her helplessness turned into worry in an instant. Let Gongjiu take your pulse. Li Hongyuan opened his eyes and looked at Jingwan. Wanwan is thinking too much. It is Wanwan who is too diligent. This husband is just bored. However, in order to make you feel at ease, there is no harm in letting Gongjiu take a look. Just take it as a check of the pulse. This subordinate will go and call Gongjiu over. Imperial bodyguard Qian, who had been forced to eat dog food in the background, seized the opportunity and immediately volunteered. Go. Imperial bodyguard Qian's feet were like oil as he walked very quickly. Only Gongjiu came in after him. It was obvious that Li Hongyuan's health was very good. Even if he was so crazy yesterday, there were no signs of kidney deficiency. Therefore, Jin Qinwang was really idle. His wife was also busy and did not accompany him. Jingwan rubbed her eyebrows. Was this really someone who was busy fighting for power? Jingwan decided not to care about him anymore. Let him do whatever he wanted. Even if he was bored to the point of sleeping, focusing on the things at hand was the most important thing. Just like this, one was busy, the other was idle. Time passed quickly for an hour. Jingwan stretched, Yuan, N, https://11/11807/116876605. Chapter 476. It's up to you. From Li Hongyuan's point of view, there was essentially no difference between playing big and playing small. That was to find fun. Opening the horse racing track to make money was just to see his wife happy and play around. Even if he needed money in the future, he could find it from other places. He didn't need to do anything now. His things, even if they were moldy and long grass, would not be shared with others. However, who let his wife be happy, so it didn't matter. From another point of view, this was a good opportunity. The bigger the game, the easier it would be to make a move. If some people didn't take the opportunity to do something, Li Hongyuan would be very disappointed. In the entire capital, if one wanted to know which people were better at playing and horsemanship, one would know after checking. Or if they had a group of capable ministers under them, one didn't need to deliberately check. One just had to ask and perhaps they would know the answer. In fact, the people below did know. However, in order to achieve perfection, they didn't want to have any negligence. They still carefully checked one side. This kind of rigor had obviously become a habit. It could be imagined that those people who were far from reaching this level, when they received the invitation with Jin Qinwang's official seal, would be very surprised. Especially since they were essentially the kind of dandy young masters who didn't do proper work. Of course, as the elders of these people, their expressions were also quite wonderful. Regardless of his reputation, he was a genuine Qinhuang and deeply received the emperor's grace. Even if he only asked you to amuse him, for many people, it was a great honor. Being disliked by the family all day, the disgraceful thing who couldn't wait to be beaten 3 times a day, suddenly receiving that favor that they might not be able to get in their lifetime. The feeling in their hearts was really, if it was purely spoiled by the family, it was still okay. Perhaps the mother and grandmother in the family would clap their hands and laugh, saying that their good son and grandson had good prospects. And these people's tails would probably be raised to the sky. So what if the other brothers were powerful? Could they get Jin Qinwang's invitation? Could they enter Jin Qinwang's manor? Could they be invited by Jin Qinwang to race together? However, if it was a waste of a concubine's son that was specially raised by a D-mother, those D-mothers would probably vomit blood. Originally, they had suppressed him with great difficulty, but now they used this kind of method to turn things around, no matter what the consideration was. As the head of the family, he would pay more attention to it. The more ambitious he was, the more support he would give. Once the illegitimate sons got up, the D sons would certainly not have as many benefits as they originally had. Moreover, if Jin Qinhuang's whims were not just once, there would be many, many times. Then, these illegitimate sons who crawled up, as D mothers, would not dare to move even half a point. If they moved, perhaps they would cut off some of their own husbands' paths. Thus, they might not be able to sit on the position of the principal wife. After all, Jin Qinhuang had money, knew how to play, and had seen his superb horsemanship. Even if they were afraid of him, their hearts were still a little itchy. However, Jin Qinhuang had never taken them out to play. This time, he actually invited them to race together. Deep in their hearts, they couldn't help but be excited. Moreover, they could also be proud of their father who wanted to break their legs. This was going out to play in broad daylight. As for those who were grounded, they were even happier. Dad, it's not that I want to go out, it's Jin Qinhuang who invited me. You don't want me to go out? Fine, you went to reply to Jin Qinhuang's invitation. Encountering this kind of evil creature, as the father, they definitely wanted to beat them to death. However, they really couldn't not give Jin Qinhuang face. Therefore, looking at their own family's evil creature's proud face, they could only endure it. They actually wanted to detain the evil creatures at home, but they couldn't because these evil creatures still had an invitation in their hands. Jingwan didn't know if it was because of her bad taste, but those big families, not only did they send an invitation to the head of the family, they also sent an invitation to their family's best. Detain. But fortunately, they didn't only invite the best. Therefore, they naturally sent the family's most outstanding and most capable ones over. At least, they had to watch a bit, and didn't make any unmanageable mess. Moreover, since the situation of each family was the same, then it was also a rather good opportunity to make friends. And for those people whose status didn't reach this level, one invitation could still bring 5 people. Naturally, each had their own considerations. Even if it was the illegitimate son who could turn the tables and become indignant, she also had her own plans. Even if the illegitimate son stood out in front of Jin Qinhuang, it was still the same. But if their own child made friends with the children of the big families, then it was possible for them to soar to the sky. Thinking like this, their hearts were burning hot. Their indignation and unwillingness were thrown to one side as they thought about how to make their child stand out. And those young ladies, young women and little being who had not yet grown up, their thoughts were more simple. They were curious and wanted to go take a look. After all, last year when Jin Qinhuang built a horse farm, it could be said that it was on a grand scale. Even with the Jiangnan incident, the emperor's thunderous rage didn't stop work. Moreover, that belonged to the imperial manor, so there were few opportunities to go. With this opportunity, they naturally wanted to satisfy some curiosity and even a little vanity. Therefore, whether the advantages outweighed the disadvantages or the disadvantages outweighed the advantages, it really couldn't be generalized. These people were all invited, so Jin Qinhuang's brothers and sisters naturally couldn't be left out. Regardless of whether they had left the palace or not, in fact, those who were still in the palace were even more looking forward to it. After all, for them to go out of the palace, it was countless times more difficult than for a lady to go out of the boudoir. Therefore, the horse race that was prepared this time, compared to Jingwan's idea, was a bit bigger and more lively. It could be said that all those who could attend were all present. All the participating horses were first sent to the manor 2 days before the official race and agreed that one person would follow. Finally, when the horses were gathered together, Jingwan saw that spectacular scene and her heart was a bit hard to describe. The total number of invitations sent out, there are less than 100. These 200 plus horses, where did they come from? Replying to Wang Fei, some young masters sent more horses. The steward of the Wang Fu who was in charge of these horses tactfully replied. Ah, how many horses are they preparing for one person to ride? But it doesn't matter. Originally, they didn't intend to let those young masters personally participate. In any case, the ultimate goal is to bet on horses and not on people. They have that kind of confidence, so it doesn't matter if they send all the horses. Each family can only send one horse. If the extra horses want to appear, let them pay the appearance fee. After all, this is the first time, so the appearance fee will be cheaper. 1,000 taels for one horse. In addition, the horses of the same family can't appear in the same race. This Wang Fei is also thinking of them. After all, some people may be willing to compete by themselves. At the same time, it will be convenient for them to bet on each of their horses. They were also convinced that the Wang Fei's idea was another way to make money. It must be said that some people were bursting with confidence in their horses. 2 days later, the young masters who were preparing for the race, after getting the explanation from the people of the stud farm, thought that it was good. Wasn't it just 1,000 taels of appearance fee? It was a piece of cake. After getting the approval, they waved their hands and asked their attendants to go home and bring the other treasures at home. Speaking of which, young people were definitely not the only ones who were fond of horses. Some people had been fond of horses for their entire lives. Even if they could no longer personally ride them, they were still willing to raise a few precious horses. Such people, if given the chance, were also quite willing to bring out their treasures to show them off. Therefore, this stud farm really didn't have to worry about its prosperity. Although the people who came were all young people and children, the number of people present was not less than that of a very important banquet. The essential purpose was to have fun. Therefore, Jingwan was also simple and convenient. She only needed to entertain a few sisters-in-law. She was really surprised to see Princess Lu. It was not easy for her to be pregnant. She was still in a special period and the pregnancy was not stable. She dared to come out and wander around. Was she really fearless or did she have other ideas? Jingwan's eyes flashed slightly, but she did not say anything. She only asked the servants to serve her well. The things that she asked them to prepare for her were all normal and would not go wrong. Moreover, they were all passed through the hands of the people around her. However, perhaps because she was really happy, Princess Lu became much gentler. Her smile was not perfect from the beginning to the end. At least, in Jingwan's eyes, it was much more real. https://11807/11807/11725298. Mobile edition website, You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.